Apologies for the delay. Apologies for the delay in starting, but thank you for hanging in with us. And we're delighted that we've got all our speakers and panel members on the line, and that we can spend an hour together talking to you about the Guideline International Network, and in particular, the regional communities that GIN has formed around the world, how they work, what works best, what challenges they face, and what their plans are for the future. After that, we will have an opportunity to ask questions, and please use the Q&A button on your screens to post your questions. We'll monitor that. And anyway, I'm just welcoming you all to the session again. Let me just begin by introducing our speakers. I'll just let you know briefly who I am. I'm Sue Phillips. For some of you who've been members of GIN for a long time will remember me from the early days of the foundation of GIN. I was a former trustee for 3 terms and vice chair of the board for a couple of years. So I've had long-standing involvement in the Guideline International Network, both around the world, but also back in Australia, where I come from. So our first speaker will be Elaine Harrow. Elaine is well known to quite a few of you, of course. Oh, and welcome, Samia, as well. Sorry, I just noticed that you're there. Thank you for joining us. Elaine is the CEO of the Guideline International Network. She's been at the helm of the organization since 2012. And during this time, she's overseen an enormous change in the organization, which she's very capably led. The strategic development and professionalism of the business management unit has been superb. She's led the growth of GIN Secretariat in supporting the board and GIN members. She's delivered some key projects, including the rebranding of GIN, the delivery of a new website, and a highly professional series of international events, such as this one. But of course, the main one for GIN is the annual conference. So after that, you'll hear from the chairs of 3 of our regional communities. And the first one is Yerado Abrahamian. She is the team leader for clinical practice guidelines in Kaiser Permanente in Southern California. She manages a guideline portfolio of a very large collection of 30+ evidence-based guidelines. And also she manages the evidence-informed guidance documents that Kaiser Permanente produces for its clinicians. Yerado has been actively involved with GIN North America Regional Community since it started in 2010, and she's now the chair of GIN North America Steering Group, as well as GIN Membership Committee. Our second speaker from the regional communities is Maria Ahrenfeldt. Thank goodness you are here, Maria. We're very happy to see your face. Maria works in the Danish Health Authority in Copenhagen, where she is Deputy Director for the Department of Evidence-Based Medicine. Her department has been involved in guideline work since 2012. She's also been a member of GIN for more than 10 years. Maria is the chair of GIN Nordic Regional Community, and she's been chair for the last 3 years. And finally, Kelvin Hill. Welcome. Kelvin has worked at the Stroke Foundation Australia since 2003. He leads the development and implementation of the Australian and New Zealand Living Stroke Guidelines, a remarkable piece of work. He also works on the National Stroke Audit and other national clinical and policy activities. He's actively involved in national and international efforts to improve guideline methods and their implementation. Like quite a few of our speakers tonight, he is a long-standing GIN member, and he's the current chair of the Australia and New Zealand Regional Community of GIN. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Elaine, and she will tell you a little bit about GIN as an organization. Over to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Sue. I seem to be able to switch the slides. I don't know if that was me or if somebody did it remotely. Thank you. So I would like to start by telling or giving a bit of background to GIN as an organisation. We are a global organisation with regional impact. We were founded in November 2002 and registered as a Scottish charity in February 2003, which means that we're currently celebrating, we're just starting to celebrate 20 years of GIN. It was started by an international founding committee of 21 people who encouraged 37 organisations to join as founding members. back in 2002 to 2003. Our vision is trustworthy and accessible guidance for better health, and our mission is to lead, strengthen and support collaboration work within the guideline development, adaptation and implementation community. And you can find out more about GIN by visiting our website. At the moment, we have 7 regional communities. GIN North America was established in 2010 as a pilot, and it was so successful that it became a forerunner to the additional 6 communities that we have in place today. These communities are Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Asia, Arab, Nordic, and GIN Ibero-America. The purpose of the regional communities are to promote GIN locally, welcome non-members, demonstrating the value of the network to them, to help expand the reach of GIN in those disciplines not already involved, to provide a focus on topics that are regionally relevant, provide networking and training opportunities for participants outside of the annual GIN conference, and to improve and harmonise guideline methodologies in the region while minimising duplication of effort. It's important to point out that while there is a structure to the communities and the generic structure is supported by GIN, they each have the autonomy to work on doing what best supports their own networks and the community in their area. And you'll find out from the chairs who are going to speak today that this is not necessarily the same across all areas. Importantly, the establishment of a regional community is driven by members, so not driven by board or any kind of central GIN. It is the members who tend to come together and promote and propose a new network or a new region. The chair and the steering group will be elected by the GIN members within the community, and the steering group sets the annual objectives and is responsible for delivering them. There is always a board liaison whose main role is ensuring two-way communication with the GIN board. This is really important because it is crucial that each community feels that it's supported and heard by the board and is aligned to the strategy of GIN. Participants in a regional community don't have to be GIN members to begin with, but their participation can continue for up to a year. And at the beginning of the following membership year, participants who are not yet GIN members will be invited to join. As well as the regional communities, we also have a vast array of working groups, and you can see the names of them on the screen. So from appraising and including different knowledge and guideline development through adaptation, GIN tech, collaboration, and a couple of our new ones are guidelines in medical education and traditional medicine. So I would like to hand over to Yerado to talk about GIN North America and the successes within it.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Elaine. Next slide. So hello, everyone. I'm Yerado Abrahamian. I'm from GIN North America, and I represent a really large regional community. Our members are from the United States, Canada, as well as Mexico. The majority of our members do come from the United States and Canada, but we do have consistent representation from Mexico as well. Our member body represents different areas of healthcare. They are from medical specialty societies, academic institutions, healthcare organizations, insurance companies, government agencies, as well as patient advocacy groups, among other types of organizations. Our mission is multifaceted. Primarily, we do provide a network for North American guideline users to connect with each other, to share their guideline work, to discuss opportunities for collaboration, to discuss general issues in the guideline development and implementation adaptation process. We enhance and promote relationships between GIN and the North American guideline community. We make sure that our community members are aware of all the great things being done throughout the multiple communities in GIN, communities as well as working groups in GIN. We encourage recruitment of organizations and individuals, including those in disciplines not engaged directly in guideline work. We hope to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of evidence-based guideline development, adaptation, and dissemination, implementation. And we engage in and promote projects in GIN working groups, as well as facilitate research, individual or organizational research projects. Thank you. Next slide. Elaine. Or
I'm trying. Sorry, it's not moving on. No, it is not moving on.
Okay, if you tell me the title of the next
there
slide,
we go.
there it is. What do we gain from being a GIN regional community? This allows us an opportunity to collaborate with not just our own regional community, but outside of our regional community. And it allows us to adopt and adapt from each other's work. There is great efficiency in that when a guideline is developed by another organization, whether in North America or outside, there's great efficiency in using that as a primary basis of our own guideline work. It helps us save resources, human resources, other resources. This allows us access to the international brainpower of guideline methodology development. All of the big programs and apps that are currently being used in guideline development methodology, such as GRADE, the MAGIC app, all of the other numerous tools, all the people who develop those tools are mostly involved in GIN. That allows, as a GIN member or a member of the GIN North American Regional Community, it allows us direct access to that brainpower. It allows us direct access, direct lines of communications with those people. It really behooves us to be in touch with them, to learn from them, to share our experiences with them, and to share learnings from the use of their programs. So it does allow us an opportunity to participate in the build and launch of those innovative tools as well as participate in the concept development and application. Additionally, we have, as a regional community, we have opportunities to share experiences, learnings, and challenges with a diverse group of people. So our organization, our regional community is comprised of members from varied areas of healthcare with different goals and agenda, but we're mainly working on very similar work streams and developing similar products. And it allows us to sort of have someone to speak with about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and learn from others' mistakes, others' experiences. And this is a very, very valuable forum to promote individual and organizational research of any scale. So we have a built-in audience for our research. We have a built-in audience to survey for our research projects. So that really, there can't be any value placed on that. Next slide, please. I think the next slide would be about the successes of our community, correct?
It is successes and strengths.
Yes. So some of the successes of or strengths of our community is that we, GIN North America, initiated the GIN webinar series. And thus far, we've organized and made publicly available over 25 webinars featuring international panelists. Most of those webinars are even currently publicly available on the GIN website. And we don't limit participation in our webinars to GIN members, which I think is a great asset that GIN allows us to do. It really provides a forum for our members to learn about novel research, novel methodology, and to sort of exchange ideas in the Q&A session of those webinars. We also have a biannual in-person meeting and our mini conference, followed by an open space meeting where attendees set the agenda. So we have a regional meeting at the annual GIN conference, and outside of that, we host a meeting somewhere in North America. We try to rotate the location among the 3 countries. Our membership really appreciates in-person engagement, and we try to accommodate that need. We have a very engaged community who's very eager to collaborate and partner, and that really makes for really great conversations and really effective sharing of resources. And I think our community really is successful at creating some synergy to provides opportunity for communications among not just guideline developers, but also systematic reviewers and other research communities. Next. I think that our next slide is going to be some of the challenges that our community faces. One of the challenges we face is that in our 3 countries represented in our region, we have diverse different healthcare systems. We have unique healthcare systems. Canada has universal healthcare, socialized medicine. The US has a hybrid system where the responsibility is shared by the government, the individual, and private health insurance. Mexico has sort of a socialized healthcare system, but it is still overwhelmed that people do turn to private insurance as well. Because of our different healthcare systems, sometimes the audience of our products is different, how the guidelines are, the use of the guidelines in the different communities varies. And so sometimes that presents a challenge when we're sort of collaborating or trying to share work. I think the biggest challenge is that is resource availability. This membership, those active in the GIN groups are volunteers. And especially in this post-COVID or mid-COVID world, I think all of us in healthcare have been overburdened with work, and there's a lot of burnout. So it really puts a limit on resource availability, but we're doing our best to meet the needs of our community and with GIN's support. Also, our membership is from diverse organizational structures. So someone who's producing a guideline for a government organization is going to have different demands of his or her work than me, where I represent a payer organization and a health insurance company. So there are some differences to work out, but in general, because our goal is to sort of share the core of guideline development, it is definitely, there's a lot to gain out of regional community membership. Next slide, please. What are our plans for the future? Our webinar program was sort of in a lull during the tail end of COVID, so we're revamping that. In fact, we do have one scheduled on Wednesday with a focus on health equity, specifically race and racism and guideline development. That's going to be a running series this year. We've also made a strong commitment to focus on patient engagement of patient groups and consumer advocacy groups in the guideline development process. As an international community of guideline developers, we have all struggled with including the patient perspective in our guideline development work. And we're committing to focusing on that this year to identify best practices to involve patient representatives on guideline panels as a first step. We will also actively facilitate and promote research projects stemming from our community. This has always been part of our mission, but not really been at the forefront of our goals. And this is a priority goal for us this year. We will also continue to have smaller regional in-person meetings and participate in the large-scale conference as well. And we will, as always, continue to support GIN's mission and goals. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Yerado. And I will hand straight over to Marie at this point.
Hello, everybody. And my slides.
I am sorry, it is still sticking.
Yeah, I'll just, yeah, I'm from GIN Nordic. And yeah, we are, I can just start by telling you who we are. We are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. So we are quite a small community in the northern part of Europe. And we are mostly built around the health authorities, but there are also other organizations involved. I don't know if my slides are coming or...
I handed over control.
I don't think I can control the slides. There. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, as I just said, the main participants in Nordic are the health authorities in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. It is health authorities that are the main members of GIN, whereas in Finland, it is the Finnish Medical Authority. But we also have other organizations in GIN Nordic. But as I said, we are quite small. And our primary goal is to enhance Nordic collaboration and to make use of our specific Nordic context and the similarities between the Nordic countries. Yeah, next, yeah. GIN gives us an excellent framework for collaboration. The principal aims of GIN are the same as the principal aims of GIN Nordic, which is basically we would like to help each other to make better guidelines. We have used the GIN framework to establish a permanent forum for collaboration where we meet twice a year. We always meet in connection with the annual GIN conference. And then we also have a meeting in spring where we normally have a workshop with a different theme each year. So since we are only a small community, one of the best things with being a part of GIN is access to guideline work outside the Nordic countries. As Yerado said, it is access to brain power and access to all the international experts. Yeah. GIN Nordic is built on a long tradition of collaboration between our countries in many areas, not only in healthcare, but in all kinds of different areas. The Nordic countries are quite similar. We have similar healthcare systems and a society that is in many ways quite similar to each other. And also our long history of collaboration also means that we trust each other. We are not afraid of sharing experiences, finding inspiration, and helping each other, and sharing good and bad experiences with this kind of work. It is more of an informal than formal collaboration. It is networking, it is sharing of experiences that means the most to us. But also another quite important feature is that we share a common methodological foundation. All the countries in GIN Nordic use GRADE. And we have used our network quite a lot to teach others in the Nordic countries about GRADE. For example, when we couldn't meet during the pandemic, we held online courses in GRADE, and I think we'll continue to do that. But yeah, even though we are quite similar, it is different what's on the political agenda in each country. As I said earlier, most of us are working in the health authorities, which means we are quite close to the political agenda in each country, and the political environment is different. And when we, as a public authority, a health authority, develop guidelines, we rely on public funding. And our guidelines are also sent in public hearings. That makes us different from probably most clinical societies, and it can also be a challenge for collaboration across countries, since it is not always the same topics that are hot in the different countries. And again, resources has to be public funded. Yeah, so this close connection with the political environment in our countries makes it hard to plan guidelines with a common topic. It has been on our wish list for quite some years to make a common Nordic guideline. So far, we haven't really found out how to do it, how to find a topic that can be funded in all countries at the same time. But it is like one of our plans for the future, maybe. Yeah, and actually all our countries have we have our own language, again, bit similar languages, so some of us understand each other, some of us don't understand each other, so that can be a challenge. We develop guidelines for clinicians in our own country, so we have to write the guidelines in our own mother tongue. So again, that's another barrier for making our Nordic guideline that we would like to do someday. Yeah. Yeah. Our Nordic collaboration has been difficult during the pandemic. So our primary focus this year is to get to know each other better. And to share experiences with guideline work. So we are starting a little bit fresh after 2 years of where we've been focused on other things. What's quite important is that we would like to create new routines when starting a new guideline or updating an older one. In particular, we would like that if a guideline group in one of the Nordic countries is starting a new guideline, that guideline group contacts the Nordic representative. So we from the Nordic can help them to get in touch with other groups that might be working on the same topic. And then we have some special focus point. Again, then the Nordic guideline is not on the way, but what we can do is to share data in specific guidelines and share evidence tables. That's a lot easier than finding the solution for a common guideline. And then we would also like more international cooperation outside the Nordic countries with other GIN members, maybe. And then we would like to use English more or translate central documents into English. That that would help a lot with the collaboration outside the Nordic countries, of course, but it would also help us within the Nordic countries. So that's also a focus point. And then, yeah, finally, since we are all now masters of Zoom, we would like to have more informal contacts, have more frequent, short virtual meetings, not only the 2 more formal meetings. But basically, what we need to do is to keep in touch with each other and be better at sharing experiences. So yeah, that's it for me, I think.
Thank you very much, Maria. That was really excellent. And now our third speaker, hand over to Kelvin.
Good morning, good evening, and everything in between, everyone. It's great to join you from Australia, down under, so they say. I'm going to talk about our experience in the Australian and New Zealand regional community, and highlight some of the similarities that we've already heard from my peers, and some uniqueness. So like others, we're just a small group of people who are either involved directly in guideline development or implementation across Australia, predominantly Australia. There's a very small community in New Zealand. New Zealand was actually very instrumental in the origination of GIN being a founding member, and the first conference was held in New Zealand. But we're really a small group, predominantly just bespoke guideline developers, a few academics, and some government representation. So on to the next. So what we in Australia and New Zealand get out, and really just highlights and picking up some of the things that have been shared already. In the pandemic, and particularly we've had this in Australia being a long way away from the rest of North America or Europe. Distance is a big thing, but the regional networks allow us that connection with our peers who are also, guideline and evidence-based medicine really is quite a bespoke at times, depending where you work and what you do. But often it can be quite isolating. You head down doing the work, and it's important to have the professional and social connections to feel part of a bigger picture, but also to feed in the learnings and things and the growth of our science as a guideline and implementation community. So for us, it's that connection, as you've heard this morning, is very important. The other thing is just having that diffusion from the experts internationally, and we have in Australia some really leading experts as well. But to be able to apply that and contextualize that within an Australian and New Zealand environment is really important and great output for us. Next screen. So we, like the North American one, have been primarily focused on education and linking in. So we also run a webinar for our area quarterly, and just a quarterly newsletter to promote, share, and raise the awareness of guideline methods and implementation. We have reasonable numbers attend those, and it's been quite successful. We also have co-hosted, like the North Americans, actual conferences, local conferences here. We have certainly a real strong point in this part of the world around living guidelines and methodology, and so we certainly promote that innovative approach. And importantly, we've had the joy of being able to host the GIN conference, and the GIN for me has been really instrumental, almost like speed dating professionally. So you can mix with the experts and really connect, and it's a powerful professional way of learning and growing in your career. So we've had that a couple of times. Next slide. So like others, the challenge is really about the niche work that we do and connecting with those outside and trying to influence the greater circle of evidence-based practice here for improving patient health in our context. So really, it's been a bit tricky in Australia. There's no real strong, like the Nordic community has very strong, policy and government directives, whereas we don't have that here in Australia. So we certainly rely on just peer-to-peer sharing and trying to influence the system. and we are quite a small group, so that can be its challenges. If people leave, it can be change the social network. In the last slide, so clearly, as I mentioned, just that connection with our peers is critical in any sort of group and focus. But even having a small group, our steering committee is about 6 members, and we really get a lot out of what we do. Certainly sharing the science and learning from others internationally, but also from each other, and pushing ourselves to move the science and what we do better, smarter, more efficient is very important, and finally breaking down the barriers as we work together, and like others have said, not just across agencies, but across various groups. And we think that ultimately improves what we do and what we do for the communities and the stakeholders that we work for. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much to our excellent speakers. I think you've heard here from 3 different groups, a very large group in North America that's been established for a long time, and 2 smaller groups, one in the Nordic area and one in the Australian New Zealand area. There are other groups, as you heard from Elaine, around the world, formed also as regional communities. So our session in the Q&A really is about giving you as audience members an opportunity to ask questions, and please use the Q&A button if you've got a burning question. We also have with us, I see Samia Alhabib, and welcome you. Samia is the chair of the Jin Arab community. We have some questions that I'd like to throw to the audience, but before I do that, Samia, would you like to say a few words before we start the Q&A session?
I have my presentation. I don't know, so whether I can share my screen with you, but it doesn't allow me.
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay.
You cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
I see. Yes. Okay.
That's it. Handed over, Samia.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay.
Just my slide. No.
Can't see it yet,
No.
but just give us. Just be aware that we started late, so we just have 11 minutes left for this session. And I would like.
Yeah. I'm finished in short time, but it doesn't allow me to share my slides.
No.
I don't know why.
Yeah, we seem to be viewing Elaine's screen at the moment. I'm sorry about that.
Elaine, it's still showing that you're sharing your screen. Perhaps if you
maybe.
I tried the remote control, but that only seems to go to my screen. I think it's the way that the webinar is set up. If our technical people...
question and answer session. That's what's written here in front of me.
Yeah, that's where we're at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I can share.
Hopefully.
Yes, we hope so.
Share. Can you see?
Yes, we can. Yes,
Lovely.
If you can hit slideshow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank for Lubna and the organizing committee for inviting me to give the brief about our success story. I would say a success story, but it's more than one story. That's my disclosure. I have no, to my knowledge, no other views or subject of which I'm presenting now. I'll talk about background, success stories, and some challenges. Background, of course, you know, Arab countries, states occupy an area from Atlantic Ocean in the Arabian Sea in the east, and from Mediterranean Sea in the Horn of Africa and Indian Ocean in the southeast. The Arab countries have become increasingly interested really in clinical practice as the way to provide or the method to provide evidence-based healthcare, and thereby satisfying the accreditation standard of each country. Our aims and objectives when joining as Arab GIN community is really multiple objectives. It's a way of networking. It's a partnership. It's somehow expanding the GIN membership. It helps us by engaging individuals and other organizational systems. We interact with GIN groups as well to encourage feedback and avoid duplication of effort between Arab countries. We aim as well to organize and promote regional events as well, and that's what we are doing currently. Also, we aim to improve the efficacy and effectiveness of evidence-based guideline development process, adaptation, dissemination, and implementation. Also, the main thing is to disseminate the culture of CBG's adaptation and implementation via a lot of methods like workshops and other tools. Success stories, generally via GIN, we were empowered, drive multiple activities in the Arab regional regions. We succeeded to communicate frequently with international experts. We communicated with Arab countries as well, experts, address our concern and issues with GIN. We always discuss it with them. Thank you, Elaine, you always listen to me. Disseminate GIN mission and vision, of course, that's we were the success story. Conduct multiple training courses nationally and even other Arab countries. Like I went to Oman to talk about GIN and the Arab GIN community and so on. So addressing how they join GIN. Adapting, of course, multiple CBGs with support and review of GIN experts internationally. There are different countries. One of them is Bahrain. They're active in guideline development. One of their example is Think Bahrain Breast Cancer Society. They succeeded to bring in collaboration, I think, with GIN expertise and benefit from attending conferences, because I met some of them. In Egypt, Yasser and his colleague really very active in developing Alexandria Center for Evidence-Based CBGs. In Lebanon, American University of Beirut, they have a great center now and really very active in evidence-based guidelines development. In Tunisia, they are very active as well. INAS is the National Authority of Assessment and Accreditation Healthcare. They have a lot of capacity building for CBGs, adaptation project, pathways, and HTA as well. They're very active. I could say Tunisia is the most active one. In Saudi Arabia, I might be biased, but we have multiple activities in different organizations. One of them, I'll start with King Saud University and Medical City. They have CBG steering committee and 20 departmental community, 40 CBG adaptation project. So they are so active, and they have done KSU modified adapt method as well. And they have a lot of collaboration with Tunisia, with Kuwait, and nationwide. They also, one of their product is ADHD guidelines, and some of the authors actually from GIN. That's Lubna and the rest of the group. Actually, the WHO EMRO expert meeting group, it was very active and involving a lot of evidence-based and guidelines development activities. Saudi Health Council, I have been with them for almost 3 years, and we try to have capacity building for CBG and systematic reviews, and we have some initiative in producing or adapting guideline, and one of them is a success. It was a BTE management, which I present last year in GIN as a poster. So as well, there is a lot of collaboration. Myself, I am a member in the implementation group, so we managed to publish a systematic review of trends in guideline implementation. I should put the new one, which is the updated one this year, 2022, but it's really amazing job. Myself and Anna Gagliard from Canada. So the challenges actually, I might be similar to other colleagues in other communities. COVID pandemic was really a barrier to everybody. That's why one of the challenges is to overcome it. It was how we communicate. So I create WhatsApp group, we share activities. However, there was a less interaction. So this is one of the challenges, I would say. Nationally, in my country, Saudi Arabia, there is a lot of healthcare transformation. So there might be an obstacle to involve evidence-based and guidelines implementation. Time and resources for implementation is really for everybody. Lack of interest, I would say policymakers, still they lack the knowledge and the interest in having evidence-based guideline to be based on evidence. Of course, negative values and beliefs, whether from policymakers or some clinician or healthcare practitioner. Other things is the communication among Arab countries. Times, resources, and economic turmoil might be a little bit of challenges to us.
Well, thank you, Samia. I know you've got probably just one more slide. I do apologize, but we are running out of time for questions. I'll let people read your future plans. Thank you. It's a very thorough presentation, and you've reminded us of the overlaps between regional communities and working groups, as well as, you know, with the major GIN. So just to turn over to the Q&A session, we don't need to go back to the slide, but essentially I've been keeping an eye on the QA button. I don't have anyone who's participating who's asked a question, but feel free to ask a question. What I'd like to put back to the panel is just to help people who are considering setting up a community such as your own, what particular aspect of your group's activities do your participants most value? And perhaps I'll just throw that one to Yerado.
Thank you, Sue. I think I mentioned it in my talk, but it's definitely worth reiterating. For the North American community specifically, it's of great value to have in-person engagement within our community and outside of our community. We have great representation at the annual GIN Conference, which is held all over the world. And we do have very active participation when we do host regional in-person meetings. I think there is a lot that can be communicated in email, which is another source of communication we use, obviously. We can definitely share documents and processes and workflows in email. However, when there's in-person engagement and sort of sharing a very small space, everyone's sitting around the table and discussing matters of concern to our community, challenges we're facing as guideline developers, when organizations are not paying as much for those development, when we, as Kelvin mentioned, a lot of this evidence-based work, a lot of the systematic review work that we all have to do individually before developing a guideline is a very lonely process. And I think our audience members can probably relate to that. So it's really sort of empowering and enlightening when you meet other people who are who actually have the same work processes, are struggling with the same sort of like a lot of alone time with a lot of content. There's a lot of content and medical literature produced on a daily basis. And it's really sort of anxiety inducing to be able to go through it all and to critically appraise it all. So it just really helps having a network of colleagues to tap into in person, via phone calls, emails. So, and GIN 100% provides that. And it is one of the greatest, most wonderful thing GIN provides is that network. So.
Thank you, Yerado. Yes, some very common threads here coming through the different groups. This one is for Kelvin. What is your top advice to other regional groups to set them up for success?
I think having clear goals as to who's likely to be involved, what's the breadth of and backgrounds to those who are interested, and just being realistic about what can be achieved. As others have said, this is a piece of work that we all do off the side of our tables. It's a volunteer-based thing, but it's mutually beneficial. So we are very clear, and I think any group just setting up, it needs to be really clear about what's the scope and what's realistic and what's going to make the most benefits to the members. What's going to be the thing that's going to hit home? Is it going to be education? Is it going to be connection? Is it going to be projects? And just piecing that and mapping that out, and having some clear pathways that you all agree to.
Thank you, Kelvin. And finally, a question for you, Maria. I think you talked about language, different languages. Can you perhaps elaborate a little bit more on how much or, how you feel about language as a barrier for collaboration within certain communities?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we always have to think about the end user, and the end user is a clinician in our own country. And we in Denmark have to serve them guidelines in Danish, and in Sweden they have to do it in Swedish, and so on. I don't think there's any way around that. So what we are talking about is maybe breaking up a guideline in smaller parts and having that in English. For example, having all the evidence tables in English, or some of the background. We also have something we call quick guides that are just the recommendation in English. So this is how we have like breaking it down. So we still have the end product in our own language, but breaking guideline down in smaller parts in English, because it is again resources, having both an English and a Danish, for example. It's a huge amount of work. So that is our take on it, breaking it down in smaller parts, in different languages.
So I'm not sure whether it's sudden death when we finish our session. I see that we've gone over time, and so I'd love to ask a lot more questions. So apologies, Elaine and Samia, I had some more up my sleeve for you. But given that it's, I think it's nearly, for me, it's nearly, it's 3 minutes over our allocated time. I might just wrap up, just so we don't get cut off.
Sure, there's a hand raised as well.
Oh,
by an attendee. By a Shrouk Alhamdi. So.
Oh, I see. I must be using a different view. How can we? Shrouk, do you want to ask a question, Shrouk? Are you still got your hand up?
I think he put his hand down.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, look, it's unfortunate because we have actually run out of time, but I think you can see that regional communities give members an opportunity to work together outside the GIN annual conference. It gives them an opportunity to work in smaller groups, to get together, to have some face-to-face time, and just to share problems, get to the nitty-gritty of the difficult issue of working on guidelines, and so much commonality between group, even though obviously you've all got your differences, you've got different healthcare systems, different structures and so on. But I think it's exciting to think that despite all that, collaborations flourish, and partnerships, and the living guidelines which are evolving and are really a thing of current and future now, really, and the sharing of evidence tables and the merging towards similar methodologies. I think that's been very exciting within GIN over the years. GRADE is taking over really as the preferred method, and it's lovely to see that, and it means that people can share information more easily. But just remember, if you want to set up a regional community, you do what's best for your group, and you can let your group decide, you can set your own objectives. So GIN is very supportive, and we haven't gone into the support that you get from GIN, but rest assured that it is. And you can set yourself up to meet your local needs and circumstances. So I'd like to thank you all. I'd like to thank Yerado, Elaine, Kelvin, Maria, Samia for your wonderful presentations and for sharing all this wealth of information with our participants tonight, or this morning for me. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for your moderation, Sue.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, everyone.